Hello, I'm the Nostalgia Critic. I remember it, so you don't have to. Welcome to It's Always Sunny in, I don't know, space? Let's go with space.
We could also go with Doug's house, but
Um,
I don't know where that is.
Chicago. Yeah, it's not a joke. Chicago.
Okay, I didn't know
Anyway,
that.
he's made a few references, and I think he's like shot a couple scenes of like Chicago locations before, like famous locations. So you guys gonna introduce yourself or what?
I was waiting for you to introduce yourself.
Oh
You're
yeah, I'm
starting this.
Red. I'm Red Dream Arts. How are you guys?
My name is Patty, and today we're fleeing where no one has fled before, boldly.
And I'm Lugia, and we're gonna take you back to the past to watch some shitty films that suck ass.
James Rolfe wasn't in this one, right?
He was in
Or is
this
he
He
from
one.
the
was.
other two?
It was a twist that he was one of the characters. I don't remember the context surrounding the twist. I just remember he showed up, and they
That's like
pointed
one
out
of
that
the
was them.
only things I vividly remember. Keep in mind, for the audience at home, we just saw this together yesterday.
Oh, wait, was he like the Emperor? I can't remember.
No,
No,
he was.
he was like some guy in like a robot suit. He wasn't the robot. He wasn't the RoboCop guy. But he was someone else.
Oh, Gort. Yeah, I remember now. Yeah, he was from the day the Earth stood still, that robot. Jump into some news. Rest in peace, Watto from the Star Wars universe. He was apparently brutally slain by Darth Vader. Disney released like a new like Star Wars comic, and apparently Darth Vader went back and murdered Watto, and a lot of people have been like just making jokes about it and whatnot, just because.
Is this when did this take place canonically after Revenge of the Sith?
Yes, obviously,
Okay,
because it's as Darth Vader. A lot of people are
I
like
know.
joking, like it's kind of
I don't
funny.
know if I don't know if maybe in between the original trilogy at one point he's like, you know what, I got some unfinished business. I'm just gonna head out for a second.
Star Wars, like to just like make kind of like unnecessary stories, tying up loose ends and shit. So I guess this time they're like, oh yeah, whatever happened to Watto. And what's really funny is remember, no one knows who Darth Vader is. So I'm just thinking like from the perspective of the people of Tatooine, they're just like, yo, what the hell did Watto do when like the literally like the scariest man in the universe just shows up to personally kill him? Like it doesn't even sound like a storm. Like he shows up himself and kills him. Anyway, we'll just jump right into it then.
See no reason not to.
To Boldly Flee came out in 2012 and was meant to be the finale to the Channel Awesome, not only the Channel Awesome film trilogy, but the Nostalgia Critic series. So Doug didn't actually like really want to stop being a critic entirely, but at the time there was something called SOPA that was happening. It was basically a bill like for Congress that like they're like they wanted to it was like to restrict it was going to restrict copyright online heavily. It was like the Stop Online Piracy Act. And basically like Doug was kind of paranoid that he was going to get affected. I mean, he already got taken down by YouTube at that point, and so that's the sort of conceit behind Demo Reel, because like Demo Reel was still making fun of movies. It was just making fun of it in like a way that couldn't possibly like it was making fun of it in a way that doesn't use any clips, so no company can ever like take him down. But yeah, so he was basically paranoid about that. So he was like, I don't want to like risk it anymore. So he tried to end the show. Infamously, a lot of the people did not know that he was ending the show, so they got a little bit confused when they read the script, and they're like, "Wait, are you taking down the website?" And he was like, "No, no, no, just my show." And naturally, that act never went through, and after Demo Reel bombed, he decided to come back to the show, although he decided to make it a bit more he decided to tweak it so it wouldn't be affected by copyright as much. So he started adding more sketches. Of course, after COVID, he stopped doing the sketches and just decided to make it much more like focused on analysis. If you haven't watched Doug Walker in a while, ever since 2020, he's been kind of okay again. So yeah.
I remember in like the mid 2010s when I still watched Nostalgia Critic, I was very confused when he wouldn't actually show clips of the movie. Instead, like he and his friends would like reenact scenes and like parody them. And I think that's kind of when I dropped off, was when he started doing that. But I guess in the context of like what To Boldly Flee was meant to be and how Doug had to avoid basically getting taken down by the government itself, it kind of makes sense.
Also, I think like the gimmick with those like clipless reviews was that he decided he was gonna start like reviewing like not just like old movies, but just like any movie. And a lot of those clipless reviews were, I believe, they were reviewing movies that were still in theaters for most of them. Because I remember he did Jurassic World when Jurassic World was like not on video yet. So let's just jump right into it. So I guess the plot, if you could call it that, is like basically if you remember from Suburban Knights, which you might not because we haven't talked about it in 2 years, but Suburban Knights ended with Mati from Captain Planet dying, and Nostalgia Critic is like, he's like mourning the loss or whatever, and some like plot hole like forms that's gonna like destroy the universe, so they use this like space house or whatever to like stop it or whatever. I'll be honest, I barely remember it, but the story is basically sort of a mash between a bunch of sci-fi stuff. So like it parodies Star Trek a lot, it parodies Star Wars a lot. The villain is, I believe, the villain from Battlefield Earth and the Emperor. Also, if I'm entirely honest, it has a lot in common with like the Fairly Odd Parents Wishology movies. Do you guys remember those?
No.
Wishology?
A little bit.
It just reminds me like one of those Fairly Odd Parents like specials, like the big like epic ones where they would get like a bigger budget and like it would be like an hour long instead of like, whatever length. But
The
yeah.
general premise to me kind of sounds like something out of Jimmy Neutron. Like Doug is placed under house arrest, but he's the only one who can save the world. So to work around that, he converts his house into a spaceship.
Yeah, like it's
Like that sounds
very
like a Jimmy Neutron episode. Like it's a funny idea, but in
like
execution,
it reminds me of like Codename Kids Next Door a little bit almost too. Basically, it reminds of like a 2000s cartoon getting like, the 1 hour special, like the movie, like every once in a while they'd be like, Codename Kids Next Door Operation Zero,
only
like,
you take that 1 hour special and multiply
Jimmy,
it by
Timmy,
3.
Power Up. So yeah, I guess let's just jump right into our thoughts.
All right, I'm gonna get the obvious out of
Uh,
the way. This should not have been a 3.5 hour film.
Yeah.
to put things in perspective, this is longer than any of the Godfather films and any of the theatrical cuts of the Lord of the Rings movies. And if we're bringing the extended editions into this, it's longer than the extended edition of the first Lord of the Rings movie.
By like a minute, right?
Yeah, by a minute. But still, technicalities.
I think like the main reason for its overstuffed length is just that like it wants to juggle like so many like Channel Awesome contributors. I have not heard of most of these people. Like there's this like dude with like the headphones. I don't know who he is. A lot of it is focused on this kid named like I think Tom Mockery. He's not even a Channel Awesome guy. Oh, Luke Mockery. Oh, who has recently transitioned. So I will, I guess, be calling her Kinley Mockery. My bad. She's not even a Channel Awesome contributor. She is Colin Mockery's daughter. Colin Mockery being the comedian from Whose Line Is It Anyway? The famous improv comedian. Like a show which Doug is actually a fan of. He's mentioned this before. But yeah, his dad is best friends with Wayne Brady.
If I could say a few things here, I didn't really have any expectations going into this film, but my one hope was that at the very least, it would be less obnoxious than Suburban Knights. Because that movie actually gave me a headache by the end. So I was like, I just hope this movie isn't as annoying. To its credit, it's not. Like, if I could be positive, I'll say compared to the other Channel Awesome movies, the jokes here are at least decently paced. Like, it's not a particularly funny movie, but like in terms of like jokes that like went on too long, this one felt like it had less of them.
But I don't
And
really think that matters if the jokes themselves aren't even that funny.
no, but I don't know, it's something. I guess of the trilogy, this is probably the most ambitious. Like, it does feel like there's a bit more production value. They use some CGI, and like there's more like music underscoring scenes. Granted, it's music from like other movies, but I don't know, it does make it feel a bit more like a movie. There's a small detail that I kind of like that when they actually go off into space, throughout the rest of the movie, you can hear like the background noise of the ship actually flying through the air. And they keep that consistent throughout the entire thing. And I'm like, that's a small thing, but like it does add a little bit, like to sell that they're in space.
So it's kind of weird that you mentioned the production value because technically, yes, it is more ambitious than the other two films. At the same time, though, it also feels cheaper. So when you take a look at Kick-Assia and Suburban Knights, yeah, their budgets aren't really that big, if at all, but most of those scenes were filmed on location. Whereas with To Boldly Flee, a lot of it is just green screened and it looks really bad. It kind of feels like this movie was made out of an obligation, whereas with mostly Kick-Assia and by extension Suburban Knights, it felt like more of a passion project.
Yeah, basically I agree. Like with the other two, it felt like, friends having fun. Like you see them like actually together in a park or whatever. And here, like sometimes they're together, but it's just like in a room, and a good munch of it, like you feel very like disconnected because it's just like, a guy on a green screen, or like guys together. With like Suburban Nights in particular, that just like feels like I don't know, feels like a home movie. It feels like it the first two movies have the appeal that YouTube videos have, like a Smosh video where like, oh, it's actually these actual people like just like dicking around. Right here, it doesn't really have that, and also everyone here looks significantly more miserable than they did in the previous two.
I feel
Which
like the
probably
only ones who actually like try to put in any effort are Doug Walker himself and Spoonie.
Angry Joe looked like he was having a decent time.
Yeah, this is bad, but honestly, I don't even have the energy to go into detail because it's most of the same problems as the other two films. So it's not even uniquely bad. It's just repetitive and very boring.
I could not tell you anything about the first half of this film because it just went away and faded out in my memory.
Honestly, we were so uninvolved in the plot that we made a game out of counting how many dick jokes they made just to give us a reason to stay focused.
I think we
For the record, I counted 9.
yeah, it was 9.
I didn't even get to double digits. So
Or maybe
I'll
we
give you some
miscounted. I don't
credit.
know. We maybe
I
we
don't
missed out
know.
on one. Okay. My biggest problem with Tabor Leafly, aside from the length, is that it is pretentious as fuck and so self-indulgent it's actually toxic. Because there is a point in the film where the Nostalgia Critic goes into the plot hole and ends up in his house and meets his creator, who says, literally Doug Walker himself, he's a character. He talks to the Nostalgia Critic saying like, you were just basically a character for a show, but because of your popularity, you kind of evolved into something more and became like your own entity. And I'm like, really? I mean, I get this is supposed to be like a finale to the Nostalgia Critic and like a final farewell, but it rubbed me the wrong way. Also, Nostalgia Critic becomes God at like the end of the movie.
Right, I completely forgot to mention that part of the plot. Okay, so at one point he like meets himself like out of character, and like Doug walks in brushing his teeth for some reason, even though it's the middle of the day. And he was like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm the writer." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And then like it's I'll be honest, I can't remember the plot. Like the issue with this movie is mostly that
It is a story about plot holes. Of course, there's no plot.
What I remember
yeah.
about the plot is that in the third half of the movie, it becomes a parody of The Empire Strikes Back.
I'm sorry, third
At that
half?
point, yeah, like
Was it Empire
the
Strikes
last,
Back, or
like
was it Return of the Jedi?
it was a parody of
Because
yeah,
it
it was The
parodies
Empire
Return of the
Strikes Back.
Jedi a lot.
It was a it was
It just scenes
it
from all over
basically
the
it
series,
basically
basically.
indulged into a Star Wars parody. At that point, I was just like, why don't I just watch the Family Guy Star Wars trilogy?
Or just Star Wars in general?
Honestly, they just pull scenes from all over Star Wars. Do you guys remember when they just straight up did the scene from Revenge of the Sith, and like their whole point was like, bad movies technically still have value.
Hmm.
People remember like where he was like, "It's like, okay, where can I learn to make a movie like this?" It's like, not from a critic, and like that kind of like it's the Palpatine, not the Palpatine, the Darth Plagueis scene from Revenge of the Sith. So they do that. I like how it makes references to like reviews, like the Battlefield Earth guy is there because he's like, oh, you blew up my planet. But like I watched that before, I watched a review before I watched this movie, just because I heard it was like, relevant. And no, Doug does not do anything to him. He just forgot how his actual review went. It makes no sense. It's like kind of funny. Like this movie is like somewhat built on you like remembering events from like other Channel Awesome videos, but not entirely. I would say the worst part of this movie is every time I'd accidentally touch the mouse and we'd see the progress bar pop up and we get reminded of how much time we had left. Because I remember every time like I moved the mouse, we saw the progress bar, and like Lugia would scream, "We have like 2 hours left," or like something like that. He's like, "It's only been a half hour, so we still have 2 hours left. Oh, we're only halfway done. Oh, we still got an hour." Like it was like that, honestly.
Ironically, I was more enraged at Suburban Knights for how long it felt than this movie, because going in, I knew like it would just be a miserable slog. But with Suburban Knights, that was like a 2 hour film that felt like 5 hours.
Plus, I remember you guys pointed this out, and like if we're gonna give one compliment to this movie, we're gonna say compared to the first two movies, it gets on with the jokes quicker. it doesn't get on with the story quicker, but it gets on with the jokes quicker. So like the first two movies, they would have a lot of those like Family Guy-esque jokes where they'd really drag out the punchline. They like really like, be like an Always Sunny thing where like someone says something funny, they really like milk and mug it for a bit. Here, they just say the joke and then they move on. Like it's like the timing is just a lot snappier, and none of the jokes are funny, but like they're executed better and they don't drag out.
That's the thing with To Boldly Flee. It's not annoying. It's just very boring.
It's just taxing. Yeah,
Like we
that's an issue with the movie. It is
like
mostly just boring.
we're describing it
Um.
already. We barely remember the plot.
Oh, I remember. One part of the plot. Linkara gets turned into gets like kidnapped and replaced by Mecha Kara, and then he like turns like Nostalgia Chick into like Mecha Nostalgia Chick or something.
There's like a weird plot line where like one by one, like some of the crew members are like turned into robots, and while they make it painfully obvious with a voice filter that they are robots, everyone is like, no, they're always like that, as for like comedic effect.
There's like a love triangle thing going on with like Caught in the Shadows or whatever. And like that part really sucked because unlike the others where everything was like a little bit ironic, that one they just like took seriously. I mean, it just does not work as like an emotional beat or anything. So yeah, that was just stupid.
I'm basically just grasping at straws here, trying to figure out what I remember. There was this one character who, when she gets hit or shocked, she just literally turns into Ed from Cowboy Bebop and becomes a super genius. And they have a gag where she turns back into her normal self, and they're discussing a plan to like destroy the plot hole or something. And she's like, "Oh, who made that?" And they're like, "You did." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." "How do we build this?" "I don't know."
You know what? I'm gonna say something generally positive. One or two visual gags were okay. Just like when the dude put on his headphones and they had the Spock ears, I was like, okay, that's a fine like visual gag, especially because like it's purely visual. They don't like mug it or like acknowledge it. It's just like something is like, oh, it's kind of a funny look. And I think when that one like secret agent murdered a dude, and he came in covered in blood, and like I'll be honest, I thought it was a little bit funny. When he turns around, we see his back, and like "help me" is like written in blood on his back, and I was like, oh, okay, that's a little clever. That's like the only like genuinely positive thing I can say about this movie. Everything else, it is awful. It is definitely the worst of these movies.
Here's the weird thing. There's a Nostalgia Critic review for each of these movies, the movies that Doug has actually made. He actually criticizes them for a lot of the same things we did. And in this movie, at one point, one of the characters acknowledges that Doug is basically just a collection of high-pitched screams and sketches that go on way too long. So I'm like, is Doug doing this on purpose just so he has more content?
Well, see, those reviews were all for like the DVD extras, so like it wasn't like something he released them for free later, but yeah.
Even still, he's acknowledging the criticisms of it that we
Well,
ourselves pointed out.
I believe the initial premise was that we make fun of bad movies wouldn't be funny if we made a bad movie for other people to make fun of. I think that
That
was like
sounds
the
redundant.
So I
I
ask again,
know.
is he doing it on purpose?
He is like somewhat intentionally trying to make it bad, but the way with everything, like even if you make something ironically, eventually like some sincerity will sneak in, which is why he goes on like these monologues about like the value of bad movies and whatnot. Because I feel like I feel like you can tell with this movie and even like demo reel, he feels guilty about like making fun of some of this stuff. I think part of it is like eventually he like met some of the people that he made fun of, or like I know he met Mara Wilson at one point, and he's met a lot of like his idols via the show, and I think like there's like kind of a pivot where he felt like he was a bit like too mean spirited, and he was like I think he was starting to like reflect on his career and be like, there's value to like these good movies and whatnot, to these bad movies and whatnot, and that's why he kind of like injects a lot of these like monologues and starts like talk about like do plot holes like actually like matter, like plot holes are fun, and you're like I think this whole movie, if you like actually pay attention, like just some of like the speeches and monologues that happen, it's sort of like him trying to justify his career almost, but also like send like some appreciation to like the shit he's made fun of. And like demo reel, he's like sort of I think like his the origin of like his character in demo reel has like pretty much the exact same backstory as the what happened to Jake Lloyd, the dude who played Anakin from Star Wars. And like the whole like kind of theme was like it was wrong for people to make fun of that kid. And like I'm sure like after Doug met like Mara Wilson, he kind of like started to reflect on like how to deal with like making fun of child actors and whatnot. So like yeah, if there's one thing you can say about Doug, he does listen to his own criticism. And he does actually like reflect on his stuff because like that's why I think like again like since COVID his videos have been a lot better because like he ultimately did listen to the criticism he got from his fans. Like he rejected for like a little bit, but like you can at least like understand why he rejected it because like these movies are kind of an interesting sort of like case study into like
To like a rocky moment in his career.
I guess. What's funny about like Doug Walker and James Rolfe actually, both of them, is that both of them are normal people. They're ostensibly normal people. They worked regular jobs before. They had, they have wife and kids. Doug doesn't have kids, but he's been married for years. They're not super online. They have like other people to like do that stuff for them. So for the most part, they're pretty like disconnected from internet culture. They approach it as much as like any regular person would, which is very different compared to his audience and his peers. That's why I find him a more compelling figure than most online guys because most other like online sort of locale figures, they're not like that different from each other because they all pretty much had like the same thing where like the internet got to them. But like the internet didn't really get to Doug. Like he's in a unique situation pretty much. I find the Doug Walker story fascinating, which is why I've been recommending all these movies.
I thought it was because you wanted us to understand the Linkara film.
I wasn't even planning on recommending the Linkara film up until you guys
No, no,
later.
no, 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 no. I'm positive you made us watch Kick-Assia because you explicitly said you wanted us to watch Atop the Fourth Wall and understand the lore to what gets us to that
No,
point.
Kick-Assia, when we talk about Kick-Assia, I like said a lot of this Doug Walker lore before, but like after Suburban Knights, I said I don't want to review To Boldly Flee because Suburban Knights was so painful, and I said if like I ever do it, it's just to prepare you guys for the Linkara movie. But quite frankly, after these last 2 years, and I've sort of tempered my feelings and stuff, and I've thought more about these things. That's the reason I recommended it this time. The reason I started it was it was like for Linkara reasons, but like things changed. I initially wasn't gonna recommend this for like a while, and then changed my mind. Anyway,
People do change. And with that, I think it's time we close the book on this Doug Walker trilogy.
I mean, we're probably gonna talk about him again, or at least channel awesome again.
I mean, we've
Maybe in
come this
passing, but
far.
I doubt a really in-depth discussion.
We might talk about demo reel.
No.
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, that was To Boldly Flee. I believe it is your recommendation, Lugia.
Yep. All right. Yeah, we're done with our thoughts on To Boldly Flee, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Bad movie. Don't watch. Even if you like Channel Awesome, just watch Kick-Assia, which isn't great, mind you, but a hell of a lot better in some aspects.
Or Suburban Knights, or Atop the Fourth Wall, the movie. Just not this one. There is something you can get out of the other Channel Awesome ones. You can't get out of this one unless you are like very specifically interested in the psychology of Doug. But even then, there are like videos that analyze like this stuff more, and also demo reel probably dives more into it than this one. But yeah.
It is 3.5 hours you will never get back.
Actually, brass tacks to the audience. At the 2 hour mark, we just straight up like paused the movie, took a break like for 15 minutes, and then we came back. No, this was like distributed as like a mini series, or like it'd be like one episode like every week or something. But still, yeah, that's actually sort of the reason for the length. It's released like those old like serials. So back in like the 1940s, 50s. Before TV existed, serials like the Lone Ranger, but all these superhero stuff, they every week you go to the cinema, they'd play like a 15-20 minute like thing, and then you'd come back the next week to see the next part, and like so on and so forth. So it's basically like TV, except you'd go to the like Nickelodeon or whatever, the Nickel Theater. Anyway, your recommendation.
All right. So I gave it some thought. I do have a movie that is significantly better, but that also depends on who you ask. We are going to return to the world of Paul W.S. Anderson. We're not going to talk about Resident Evil.
Event Horizon?
No.
Oh.
But we are going to go back to video game adaptations with the 1995.
Mortal Kombat?
Yep, Mortal Kombat.
You know what? I remember us liking the Street Fighter movie more than we thought. This one actually got a sequel. The only Paul W.S. Anderson movie that like people seem to like actually like is Event Horizon, but this is like considered one of the ones that are like generally Paul W.S. Anderson has like has like 4 movies that regular people seem to like, which is Event Horizon, Resident Evil, Alien vs Predator, and Mortal Kombat. And then there's all these like other movies he made, which a bunch of like B movie connoisseurs really like because he does like some insane shit, and that's like Resident Evil 4, not 2 and 3, specifically 4, and like I think 6, but
It's been a while since we
Mortal
talked
Kombat.
about a video game movie. Yeah, last one was both Mario movies.
Unless you count Hong Kong '97, which I don't.
Yeah.
No. That's just coincidence.
Yeah. Yeah. We never talked about the third Sonic movie. Yeah. Mortal Kombat 1995, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. Hello, It's Always Sunny. Actually, I'll end it like the movie, where it's just like, or it's always sunny in Hollywood. And you just cut it because he never finishes the quote.